Hi folks. Thought I'd just start a YouTube channel here. It's going to be mostly in regards to Canadian Sasquatch encounters and probably more so Albertan and British Columbian Sasquatch encounters. I'll just be mostly discussing it and just talking about different stuff. I want to get out in some certain areas here in Alberta and go see what I can find, maybe find some evidence, cast a couple tracks would be really cool. But really my end game is just to see one for myself. I'm not really interested in, getting any kind of proof, shooting one or videotaping one, as, lots of people have tried that and it doesn't really work very well. So I figure I should just do it for myself so that I can finally see one and kind of put it to rest personally for myself. If that does happen to me, I'll be happy to share my story, but I wanted to start off talking about some experiences I've had in the bush. My job takes me to extremely remote areas, and we stay there for prolonged periods of time while we conduct our work there. I've had a few strange happenings. Really, honestly, most of them could be dismissed or possibly explained by something else, but I'm going to share them anyways because of all my time in the bush, these things rarely, if ever, happened, and they seemed fairly odd. I'll go with the first one. So, at one point, we were working in a very steep mountain range. The mountains weren't super high, but they were very, very steep along the sides, but they're also forested all the way along the sides, so it wasn't a steep rocky face. The area I was working in, all the trees are stunted, so especially all the black spruce trees, so they don't grow for the most part above maybe 15, 20 feet high. And there was a lot of poplar and stuff where we were working, and they still grow fairly large. On this particular day, I met up with one of my coworkers at the end of the day. We're usually a couple kilometers apart, and we meet up to cut helicopter pads so we can get picked up at the end of the day. We were cutting a helicopter pad on the side of a ridge. So we were on top of a ridge on the side of one of these steep mountains, and there was a fairly steep ravine, maybe 50 feet below us, that we could see into from this ridge. As we were cutting trees down, we were both sawing and axing the trees, so different kinds of noise going on. Something in the bushes went absolutely nuts in this ravine. So there were some poplar trees, probably maybe 6 to 8 inches in diameter, just shaking like there was an earthquake going on. It was crazy. There was all the bushes were moving around a bunch, so we didn't see anything because this particular drainage was very thick with bushes and trees. But it was just something was going crazy in there, and I remember hearing a little bit of grunting going on, but we never really could tell what it was, and we just kind of wrote it off as being a grizzly bear having a tantrum or something. But thinking about it, the way grizzly bears usually approach territorial situations or anything like that, they will not necessarily attack you directly, but they will show you they're there. They will come out and walk around you and show you how big and powerful they are, and effectively try to scare you off. I've never even heard of or seen a bear do anything like that. Shaking large trees and bush like that is very weird. Some of the more interesting ones I find, I remember one time really well, and I think it's happened one more time than that, but I'll talk about the one that really got me. So we work in the bush every day. We're pretty comfortable in the bush. We're usually never afraid of anything. We're just, walking through the bush, hunky-dory, doing our work and stuff. And this one time I came into this area, and as soon as I came into the area, it was kind of like if you walk into the wrong part of town by accident, you're like, ooh, this place is a little sketchy. That's kind of the feeling I got when I walked in there. And I had that, it started out with an uncomfortable feeling. I don't know if I would describe it as a feeling of being watched. I would just describe it as being uncomfortable. That uncomfortable feeling as I moved through this area went from being uncomfortable to primal terror. I've never felt anything like that before. There was nothing that really instigated it, which was weird. I just all of a sudden felt terrified and I had to get out of the area. Like my body was just telling me, you have to get out of here right now. And so I actually left the area because of this. Looking over my shoulder, looking all around. I was looking for a bear because I thought, maybe there's a bear around or something. But I never saw anything. And as soon as I left that area, I was fine again. It was very, very weird. A lot of witnesses to Sasquatch encounters describe a similar thing to that, and that's kind of why I attribute that to possibly Sasquatch. If you're wondering why, it's being attributed to infrasound. Infrasound is a certain frequency of sound that large predators can make. Particularly tigers and lions and stuff have been noted to be able to hit this frequency, and it can paralyze their prey. And humans, it can do the paralyzing effect. It can have a range of effects. So you can either feel incredibly terrified of something. You can feel high anxiety. It can confuse you and make you feel disoriented. Things like that. So I was kind of wondering if that's what was hitting me. Not really sure. Anyways, some other experiences I've had. When I'm working in really thick bush, you can't see 5 feet in front of you. You can't see anything. And a couple times when I've been working in thick bush, actually not a couple times, quite a few times, I'll be working in thick bush and I'll be stopping to, do my thing for my job that I'm doing. And a large stick breaks. And it's very close. I would say definitely within 20 feet of where I am. And this has happened to me a lot of times. It's really weird, and I was just thought, oh, maybe the black bears do that. They're curious and they're coming up to you and they break a stick to see what you'll do. And then I started thinking, I don't think black bears are that smart to do something like that. They're very sneaky, black bears are. They can sneak up on you, but at first I just thought, oh yeah, I just accidentally stepped on a stick, but then it happened to me probably, I don't know, somewhere between 7 and 10 more times during the course of my working up there, and it's almost like a behavior of an animal. And I actually yell in the bush. I make a lot of noise so that animals get the hell out of my way, and so I don't have to have any dangerous encounters with animals. The people that usually get attacked and mauled by bears are the ones that don't make any noise when they're in the bush, and they startle them, and that's the end. So that's why I do that. I make a lot of noise in the bush because I don't want to be in that situation. So it's weird that something would still have the courage to come up to something that they don't really ever see. Because remember, we're in the middle of nowhere. A lot of these animals have never seen humans. If they have seen humans, they've seen very, very few of them. So something that gutsy to come up to me like that and always break a stick like that, just really, really peculiar. So usually after that stick broke, when an animal sneaks up on me and surprises me like that, my instant kind of reaction is to just start yelling really loud in the direction of whatever it is. And be very overly aggressive. It's a really good tactic with black bears. Not as good with grizzly bears, but with black bears it works really well. They just take off. A lot of the times when I did this, I would hear something moving, not necessarily away from me. And sometimes when I did this, I'd hear nothing. I'd hear no movement whatsoever. And I'm talking about an area where most of the time on where this happened, it was almost always the side of a hill, like a side of a ridge. So there's always dead leaves and all this kind of stuff that you step on and you can hear yourself walking. I never heard, it was very weird, very weird. Um, I'm not sure if you'll kind of understand. Sometimes it's one of those things where you just kind of have to be there. But I've had that happen, and actually I had that happen when I was hunting once in the last couple of years. I was out hunting for elk near Canmore in Alberta, and I was in this area, and I heard a voice, or it was weird. It sounded really, really overly deep, and I thought it might just be maybe like a reflection off the side of a mountain of a car driving by or something, but it didn't sound like anything like that. It kind of sounded like a... I'll try to kind of recreate it, but it was kind of more like a, or something like that. That's kind of what it sounded like. And I know it doesn't sound anything like a car, but I was trying to attribute where the heck that came from and what would have made that noise. And shortly after that, I heard a large stick break, and again, it was probably within 50 meters of where I was. And I was walking in a fairly open forest at that time, so I was looking around looking for this sound, and I went over to where the sound came from, and there's a large tree there, and I wanted to look behind the tree just to see if there's anything there. I looked all around this area where I heard this noise come from. There was no stick on the ground of the right size that would make that noise. It would have had to have been a stick of at least 2-inch diameter. Like, it was a pretty big stick snap. And there was nothing there. I looked up in the... I got so confused about it. I started looking up in the trees, looking for something, like a bear went up in the tree or something. There's nothing there. It was the weirdest thing. It was so weird. I guess that's it for really kind of what I've encountered. My girlfriend has actually had a weird one. She's doing her master's, and she works. She has a field site that's way up north, kind of in the middle of nowhere. And while working there, she's been there a lot. One of the days she was working there, they smelled this really gross. They said it smelled like a dead animal kind of smell. And, but they only smelled it for a couple hours. So what happened is they were working for part of the day, didn't smell anything. Then the smell comes in, and they're like, oh man, the wolves must have killed something near here or something, and we just gotta be careful and all that kind of stuff. And, in a couple hours, the smell went away. And that's really weird, because where wolves kill something, they don't typically drag it anywhere, they just eat it where it is. And, an old rotting smell, if it's an old carcass, nothing's really going to be picking at it too much if it's rotting like that, because it'll already be picked fairly clean. So that was really weird. They actually went looking for it afterwards, and they never found anything. There's nothing there. So there's no carcass. And a lot of people report with, Sasquatch encounters. Kind of like some people describe different smells, like a rotten egg smell, or a rotting carcass smell, or garbage smell, or even like a skunk mixed with garbage smell kind of thing. And so that like worried me a little bit, and I was like, make sure you're carrying your bear spray on you when you're out there. So yeah, that was interesting. So that could be another possible Sasquatch encounter. She'll never admit it, but that could have been what that was. So yeah, so those are some of my personal encounters and people close to me. I just want to start this channel where, we can have open discussions about Sasquatch, particularly in Canada and Alberta. If people want to, talk about their encounters, totally down for that. We can record a phone call or something like that, and if anybody ends up wanting to do that, I kind of want to take the approach of Wes from Sasquatch Chronicles, just have like an open place where people can feel safe and just talk about their encounters and let people know what happened to them, and just really, it's really therapeutic just to get it off your chest sometimes, I think. So yeah, if you want to do that, you can always contact me, and yeah. So we'll go from there and see where this channel goes. I'll try to document some of my outings if I ever find anything. So yeah, thanks for watching.